Hi guys, welcome back. Elle here. This is sort of part 2 of my astral projection tips. This is some advice and some tips I have for once you have successfully astral projected and set up in your brand new beautiful astral body. So first I'm going to backtrack a little bit. In that very first video where we talked about how to astral project, I sort of left things off at the vibrational state happens, you raise the vibrations and you're able to sit up, lift up, climb out, stand up, whatever you want to go about getting out. So there are a couple other things that are sort of really common experiences during that, or during or right after the vibrational state. The one that happens during, and I've heard this before lots of times too, but a lot of people will hear their name being called. They're like, Michelle, Michelle. I don't know what it is, if it's somebody else calling your name from the astral world, or if it's your own head calling your name, saying go, go, go. It's like your cheerleader. I'm not sure. People, I just sort of ignore it now, by the way. It freaked me out a few times, but just ignore it. It's very common. It's very normal. The other thing people have claimed, and this I've never really experienced, but a lot of people say they feel people sort of almost touching them or grabbing them along with the name calling. The name calling. But yeah, that I've never really specifically experienced. Again, it is very common though, so if you experienced it, you know, don't dwell on it. Don't freak out over it. Just go with the flow. So the other thing that is very, very common, and this I have experienced several times, is right when the vibrations sort of die down and you separate, most people during that actual moment of separation will feel like a pop in the back of their neck. To me, it's always felt like, almost like when you crack your neck, you know? It's like you hear it and you even feel a pop, you know? It's like, ooh, it's a little strange. But if this is something that happens to you every single time, you know, that's fine. It happens here and there to me. Honestly, most of the time I don't experience that pop sensation. Also, by the way, I have never, not once, in all my astral projecting and all my astral journeying and out-of-body experiencing, never once seen that goddamn infamous silver cord that people talk about all the time. I don't know what it is. I've never actually seen it. I've definitely felt it. Like I felt a pull from like my solar plexus region sort of pulling me back to my body on several occasions. It was definitely a very real feeling. But yeah, I don't know. I've never seen the damn thing. So anyway, the first thing that you want to do after you have successfully separated from your body, however you go about doing it, but the first thing you want to do is sort of get a little distance between you and your sleeping physical body self. For some reason, it's almost like there's this magnetic attraction. Maybe it's that silver cord pull that we were talking about. But it's like you want to get, sucked back into it almost. So all you have to do really, and I do this right away, the very first thing I do when I get out is I move to the other side of the room. Otherwise I feel very strange. I feel like I'm being sucked back to my body. I'm like, I don't want to go that way. So really it's only, I feel like maybe 8 or 10 feet is usually enough so I don't feel that anymore and I can just stand there totally fine and, you know, do my awareness now or my clarity now sort of mantra, which is the very next thing that I'll do after. And the reason that I do those sort of awareness now, clarity now mantras is because I do still often feel a little fuzzy, a little hazy, like I'm not super focused, like my consciousness isn't 100% present, you know? So I'll say that then, and then if the lights don't come on, if things are still sort of fuzzy looking to me, I will get very, very literal and say like, lights now, or eyesight now, god damn it, you know, give me clear vision. Whatever it is you wanna say it, or technically I guess you're really just thinking loudly with intent, right? But you wanna demand it, and then bam, it will happen, you know? I still try to be polite. I say please. So for your first several astral projections, I 100% recommend keeping them short and sweet. My first at least 10 or so out-of-body experiences only lasted maybe a couple of minutes each, very, very quick. And I stayed close to home too, you know, I stayed in my apartment or in my yard or just very close to home. And I would spend my time there doing very simple things, you know, just like trying to put my hand through a table or walk through a wall. You know, walking through a solid object on the astral plane can be a very, very exciting experience. It's a fascinating feeling. There's nothing quite like it. You can really feel that you're in something too. And then I spent some time, you know, learning how to flying, brushing the treetops. You know, just simple stuff like that at first. Because it's fascinating in and of itself, and you're still sort of trying to find your feet, you know, in that world. The other thing that I mean, actually, this is sort of twofold, by sort of staying close to home, is staying just on the other side of the physical in the astral world. You know, it's that, how do you describe it? There's all these different sort of vibrational frequencies and dimensions and planes of existence, right, in the astral, and you can move up them and you can move down them. The one that you end up getting sort of spit out onto every time you astral project really is just on the other side of the physical world. It's like a mirror universe almost of everything here in the physical. That's why, you know, you can watch people in the physical world doing things from the astral plane. So as long as you sort of stay close to home that way, you know, don't try and say, I wanna travel vibrationally up and become a point of light or anything like that. You know, just keep it simple at first. Keep it real. Keep it simple. So at a certain point, you are going to want to ask to meet your guide. You're gonna need a guide at a certain point, right? So I remember when I first sort of made the decision that I was going to, on my next astral projection or my next out-of-body experience, ask to meet my guide. Just call out, ask for him. And sort of what kept happening actually for a few times I remember was I would get out and then I would get so freaked out by the idea of coming face to face with another like entity or another being that it freaked me out so bad I refused to do it. I kept sort of not asking to meet him or her. But what ended up, I guess, sort of making me do it in the end was I had this sort of my first actually very scary experience in the astral. I'm not sure what happened. I guess I maybe just let some fear sort of creep into my being or something, because literally the floor fell out from underneath me. I have no idea why, and I just felt like I was falling, and I got so incredibly scared and terrified that in that moment I needed help, and I literally called out for my guide. I actually used the words like Valkyrie and Hamengja, because I don't know, as a Norse pagan, those words just they felt powerful, you know. But it meant my spirit guide, my higher self, my guardian angel, whatever you want to call it. And I called out, and bam! Instantly, the falling stopped, and I was standing in what looked like my backyard, but like on crack. Like it was almost like what you would imagine Eden or heaven to look like if it spontaneously like grew or sprouted in your own backyard. Like it was the beautiful sunshiny day. All of a sudden, all the flowers were blooming and incredibly vivid colors everywhere. And at the same time, standing right in front of me, just a couple feet away, was who I now refer to as Thor, my spirit guide. He was standing there, and he was very, very tall, very slender, dressed in beautifully embroidered purple robes draping down to the floor. He had this long, wavy sort of red hair that billowed halfway down his chest. Yeah, he was just not intimidating either at all. He was so warm and welcoming. Just so you know, by the way, too, I totally did not know this at the time. I read about it much later, you know, after I met my guide and saw him and talked to Thor. But it's apparently very, very common to see your guide dressed in purple. Isn't that weird? It's also very common that you see your guide as the opposite sex, you know, your opposite sex. So mine was clearly very much a man. And I think I even had this thought that it was going to be a woman too, you know? I mean, I'm gay, like I don't know, you know, I thought she would be like this crazy cool old lady, and it was totally not what I expected to see, but you know, maybe it was just exactly what I needed. So also the way that you communicate, the way that we talked, that was the first time I'd ever talked to another being on the astral plane. But the way you do it is so interesting too. It's more like telepathy. I felt like I was still speaking to him, but really we were just communicating by throwing these things back and forth. Like whether it was a feeling, you could communicate with just a feeling, or an image, or even this like complete sentence thoughts. You know, it was very, very clear everything that he meant to say. You know, and if I didn't sort of completely understand something, I'd be like, wait, more, and he would send me just lots more information that I could understand almost immediately. So it's an incredibly effective way of communicating. So yeah, you're definitely going to want to ask to meet your guide at some point, because he or she is probably a really cool dude. But I think that also, you know, sort of the opposite can be true. If you were anything like me, and the idea of meeting another entity or another being at first is a little bit too much for you to handle, you know, it can be a little bit of a scary idea, just the thought of it, you know. You can 100%, you know, make the declaration that you do not want to see anyone, or that you want to be alone. Don't let no, you know, alien being sort of wander through me, through my realm here, you know. Stay out of my apartment. And you can totally ask for that. I have done that. I have said, make sure I'm alone. I am not in the right state of mind to handle anybody looking at me right now. Like, it's just going to freak me out. And then as you get more comfortable there, because you 100% will, you'll be able to invite, you know, your spirit guide in to talk to you, or go seek out other sort of beings or whatever they are, you know. So I remember hearing or reading about lots of people's stories back in the day about how they would astral project. You know, they'd have an out-of-body experience, and as soon as they got out, they'd see like these like entities or beings or whatever sitting at the foot of their bed. You know, maybe they're just angels. I don't know what they are. But at the time, that idea, that stuck with me and just really creeped me out. I was like, I don't want nobody sitting at the foot of my bed. So I would astral project. I would get out. I would move away from my body. I'd say my awareness, my clarity now, my turn on the lights, whatever I got to do. And then the very next words would be, and I'm alone and nobody's here. You know, like putting it out there. I can't deal with that right now. Get away from me. I have actually since experienced what people were talking about when they say that there is an entity sort of at the foot of your bed. I don't like the word entity, sorry, that sounds kind of creepy. A being, an angel. I like angel, right? Because it is. They're positive. They're very, very positive beings. I've never really come across much in the way of negative energy at all in all my years of astral projecting. But the one that sort of hangs out at the foot of my bed sometimes is, you know, he or she, I don't know, it's more just like this energy. It has never looked as clear as like my guide Thor does. But it's just like this dude that is so positive, and he's there to heal me actually if I want to be healed. And it's almost just like he wants you to come out and play, you know? It's very a childlike energy like that. But it's totally positive. Yeah. In my case, definitely, but I feel like this is probably true lots of times, that those other beings and entities and angels and whatever they are aren't really going to show up until you're actually ready for them to show up. I don't think that sort of bumping accidentally into other beings on the astral is something that you really do have to worry about. But I know it's something that people have put out there and a lot of people have talked about. And it can stick with you and make you a little nervous. So if that is at all making you uncomfortable, all you need to do is just declare it. Nobody's here, I'm alone, and I don't want to see nobody. However you want to go about it, you know, come up with a little mantra for yourself. So before I had recommended that you guys sort of stay close to home, right? Like stay on this one plane of the astral, not venture off in other directions. But at some point, when you do get comfortable, you are going to want to explore. You are going to want to travel to all those different magical places you can go, right? I do highly recommend that you try to focus on just doing like one thing at a time while you're there, whatever it may be. You know, if you have a list of different things that you want to sort of accomplish when you get there, it can get a little confusing. You know, you're sort of be all over the place. So, you know, decide before you even sit down to practice, like what your intention is to do when you get there, and just have it limited to one specific thing. So I'm going to tell you actually a little bit about the very first time that I decided to sort of venture into different territories of the astral. So at the time, I was utterly fascinated, still am of course, by shamanic journeys. You know, I had been reading all these different accounts of shamanic journeys and like where they went to the upper world and down to the lower world. You know, I had never actually heard Carlos Castaneda sort of talk about the vibrational state before, but you know, I could see that they were probably at least in some way talking about the same world that I was going to, you know. My out-of-body experiences sounded very similar to these shamanic journeys that I was reading all about, right? So I decided that the next time I astral projected, I was going to travel the world tree, right? I was going to go down to the lower world and I was going to travel up the tree to the upper world. And so, yeah, I got out the very next time, and I separated from my body. It's in my awareness now, and I stood right there and I declared, I want to travel to the lower world and then the upper world. And whoosh! I swear to God, it was like I got sucked into a wormhole, or like I was sliding down a slide or something. It was actually quite the exhilarating experience. It wasn't scary like when I got sucked into that sort of when the ground fell out from underneath me before and I was really scared. It was nothing like that. This was really sort of a whee, here we go. It did sort of, you know, take my breath away though. But anyway, it's actually kind of hard to describe what happened next. It sort of, I bounced around a lot and things felt sort of haphazard. But the very first place that I sort of materialized in the lower world was, I gotta stop doing that so much, huh? Doot doot. Anyway, the first place I went was into this like huge green field, right? And I wasn't alone. I was holding hands with like, I think it was like 3 other little girls. I'm not sure what I actually looked like. I'm not sure if I was really in my body or if I was a little girl too. I was from my, you know, first person perspective. But I was holding their hands and we were dancing in a circle, almost like a ring around the rosy kind of playing, skipping around in a circle like that. And I could look at all of them. I could see their hair bouncing. I could feel the wind blowing and the sun beating down on us. I could feel the blades of grass as we danced around. So then I was sort of just taken to another place. It's all sort of very like nonsensical, everything that happened there. It's sort of like how you would almost expect your subconscious to act, right? Your anima in the lower world, right? I don't know. But yeah, I was taken to another place. I was instantly I knew I was in the woods, I guess because I could see out the windows. Just felt like we were in the woods in this old cottage. And there was I was sitting in a chair in the corner looking out onto this kitchen. We were in the kitchen and there was like a table set up and there was this old, intimidating, fucking powerful woman standing on the other side. I just sort of knew that she had power, you know, like she was a witch in a positive way, like strong woman, archetypal sort of energy, you know, an older sort of that crone energy too. And she was just looking at me, man. She was going, she didn't want me to explore the house. I just wanted to get up and sort of look around and check out this magical place. And she was like, no, stop it. You have to sit right there. Without really ever saying anything to me, though. It was just sort of understood that this image, sorry, is exactly what I remember. Her pointing her like sort of gnarly old finger at me. But anyway, I sort of couldn't take it anymore, and this, of my own volition, I got up and started walking out the door, and that's when she actually spoke for the first time, and she said this, she goes, "They're pieces of you." And I still, to this day, honestly, have no fucking idea what she meant. I didn't know if she was talking about the girls that I was dancing with before, that there were, you know, childlike pieces of me somehow or something like that, or if she was talking about the pieces of wood. There were like these weird wooden pieces sort of on the kitchen table. When I was sitting there, I could see them. I don't know, maybe both. Yeah, so I get outside. I'm outside in the woods. However, the scenery has changed yet again. It's really just a completely different area. It's dark now, and it's very wet, like it had just been raining. And then from there, I was walking, and then instantly, I guess my time there was done. Like I said, very nonsensical down there in the lower world. But yeah, I shot sort of back up we went, I guess, through the world tree, and I could sort of feel myself passing through more familiar places. You know, it felt like I passed where my body was and past the astral planes that I had become so much more familiar and comfortable with on. You know, we went above, we went beyond that. And when I sort of noticed that I stopped moving, I realized that I was in what looked like outer space, you know? It was that peaceful, nebulous, cloudy sort of stars in the distance and that kind of thing. And I realized that I was no longer in my body. I was just a single point of light, you know, a single point of energy, of consciousness. And instead of sort of feeling alone, like you might expect to feel, floating out there in space all alone, right? No, I felt this sort of unity, like there were other people almost in that single point of energy with me, and we were one. It was actually, honestly, the most peaceful, that's the only way I can describe it, the most peaceful I've ever felt in my entire life. It's a wonderful, wonderful experience. So actually from there, I simply woke up, like I was just back in my body, like I shot right back in, and I woke up and I remembered every little detail of what had just happened. It was a very, very cool experience. It's funny, actually, it just reminded me, there's this girl, Jessi, on YouTube, who we've sort of been talking back and forth, and she's made some videos. I'll link to one of her videos where she describes some of her astral experiences below, but that one with the old woman is actually very similar to an experience that she's had before. I feel like that's sort of where she travels to every time, these sort of lower worlds, you know? She talked about, you know, violent goddesses sort of fighting each other, you know? Sounds very familiar. So yeah, I think I'm going to stop there for now, guys. I do plan on doing, maybe tomorrow, like one more video. I do want to talk a little bit more about how astral projection can affect you, how it can change your life, and, you know, a little bit about how it's changed mine, because it really has. All right, guys. Mwah! Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.